couple of the other factors that are in here, right? And when I look at what's happening, I want to get to a concept I'm going to call immune intelligence. And that's the beauty of what you were just talking about. When we look at all the innate immune and the adaptive immune and how our body deals with the world, what this is actually going to do is reconnect the ability of the internal aspect of the body to find friend or foe, right? Now, if we look at that from a sugar-based component, whether we look at that from an inflammatory-based component, whether we look at it from a odd chemical, let's say drugs or meds or anything else, a component, it's going to help us identify what that is. But a couple of the other key things that are in here. When I look at that innate immunity, and then when I get into the viral defense and the microbiome, that's one of the greatest things about this whole combination that we're putting together. And when we think about what the purpose of the skin on the outside is and the skin on the inside, that is our first line of defense. And once something breaks down in there, we no longer have the ability to fight those things, and now things leak into the body and start causing a ton of things. And we can talk about a lot of things in the autoimmune system, all these other factors that start triggering those imbalances. So when I come back and look at what's happening in here, specifically when I get into and I look at the large aspect of this, that's what gives us the correct communication for all systems in this body. And I've used this analogy before. I'm going to say it again. When you look at the bodies at war, and we jokingly said every time you eat, you're going to war because the body is trying to decide friend or foe, good or bad, kind of use it, kind of not use it. Is it good? Is it bad? Is it junk? What is it? And part of the mechanism of the body is to read that aspect through the immune system first. And so the first thing I'm going to look at what the asmannin and the larch the larch is going to do. It's actually going to turn on that component to look at the dendritic cells, right? It's going to look at the natural killer cells activity. It's going to look at the microbiome, specifically the bifidobacter bacteria, the microbiome, which is in the brain, the lungs, the gut, and under the skin. Then it's actually going to increase what is called secretory IgA, which is a part of that immune system that's looking for those different protein bonds, whether they're foreign, meaning they're different to what our body needs, or what our body can use and break that down. And then the next thing it's going to do, it's actually going to take that pathway and go inside the liver, which helps us break down all the toxins. Now, once it goes to that phase, now we know how to break things down and recycle certain things. And so when I said earlier that that's one of the key immune intelligence, that's what I'm looking at. Then what you talked about on the gum acacia, now we're going to talk about antiviral pathways. And the virion, which is a substrate of the virus, it's what spreads throughout a body. When a person gets sick, that thing takes over and starts changing. If you don't have the dendritic cells, you don't have the Th1, Th2 cells, you don't have the natural killer cells available, we have low resistance to those immune things happening in our body. And what does that do? We all know that leads to an anti-inflammatory issue. And when that happens, here's where this is going to fit our stack so perfect, right? There's a term that we call the LPS, all right, the lipopolysaccharides, which once they break down, they become the primary thing to start triggering an inflammatory reaction. And inside this, when we look at the microbiome, the way I try to describe this, it's like you have this armor around the microbiome. And when the microbiome loses its battle, it can no longer replicate. Now you have this armor laying around, and this armor breaks down and becomes toxic. That works its way through the system into the cells. And when you hit that lipopolysaccharide, which means it's a fat sugar cell, that makes it toxic. When it does that, it now pulls oxygen in, and that's where we get the reactive oxygen species. And now you have the very beginning phase of all inflammatory issues in the entirety of the human body. Now, when we combine this with fix and fit, and we look at the fact how it breaks those down in the visceral adipose tissue, the fat around all the organs, and then the subcutaneous under the skin and around all the muscle, this is what's going to make, in my opinion, Vericell is going to be as much of a hero product as the fix is going to be, because that combination is a superhuman. It's a superhero product. Individually, they're both great. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying. But when you combine them together, this is probably going to be something no one has ever seen in the world. They're great by themselves, but together, this is going to create a phenomenal reaction in the body. So, Dr. Dan, I appreciate that. You did a great job. I